Mr. Lee has been in this historical world for 10 years. I wonder what he has done this time. With the help of Manhwa, I have left more and more photos. Yes, that's right, women like to take pictures. The bicycle wheel is spinning fast, and the bell rings. I gradually discover that as long as the main course of history does not change, my compatibility and integration with this era is getting higher and higher. For example, this bike ride, do you think Mr. Lee is taking a girl out for fun? No, Mr. Lee is taking the girl to a vocational school. It looks like a husband taking his wife, who is a teacher, to school. Mr. Lee is trying his best to pedal faster, because he does not use hacks to experience reality. Time and Mr. Lee are not very comfortable, it's just that Mr. Lee is used to driving supercars, flying planes with subordinates. Now, Mr. Lee has to pedal hard to be a driver for a girl. Yes, I always remember high technology. Mr. Lee pedals and gasps, and the girl says hurry up sir, I will be late. Yes, maybe I will be late today. If possible, you don't have to pick me up either. Mr. Lee clenches his teeth and whispers no, I will wait for her outside. Mr. Lee smiles and says that he will leave a mark from the beginning and be pushed out. Now, he can change the fate of some people. It seems that as I become stronger, more time, even in history in the past, gradually yields to me. Then, a few minutes later, they arrive somewhere. Maybe this is their school. In front of them are some girls standing in a line, listening to lectures and guidance from Manhwa. She says that photography should not only pay attention to composition and structure, but you also need to learn how to use the effect of light on the scene effectively. As for Mr. Lee, he talks to himself while waiting for the girl at a place. Mr. Lee says that however, he has changed part of Kong Manhwa's fate, but it seems that he cannot change the main trend of history and the troubles and pains that this great impact brings to people. Then Mr. Lee hears the voice of a boy announcing. Mr. Lee also looks at him. The kid says loudly, the Kong family has been in power for 10 years, developing strongly. What is the secret behind the patriotic businessman? Want to know more than newspapers here. Then Mr. Lee sighs and says, as for others, they can only wait for me to return to the future and observe. Then I don't know how many hours have passed, Kong Manhwa also came out. Mr. Lee, have you been waiting long? Sorry for making you wait so long. As compensation, I will invite you to dinner. I know a good restaurant near Paramount. Then Mr. Lee also says, okay, let's go there. I have something to say to you. They sit down at the table like two couples. The girl says, the steak here is very delicious, I have wanted to come here with someone for a long time. I only heard Van Dow talk about it before. Then they both raise their glasses of red wine and toast together, cheers. The sound of two glasses clinking together is heard. Then Mr. Lee says, happy birthday Kong Manhwa. The girl was very surprised and amazed, then she blushed shyly, smiled, giggled, closed her eyes, touched her face and said, I really forgot about this thing. You know it really feels like just in a blink of an eye it's my birthday already. Then, that expression of the girl quickly disappeared. The girl said that it can't be helped, even though the family clan doesn't blame me anymore, but for a rebellious girl like me, there will be no blessings or congratulations from the family. Luckily, I have you by my side, so there is no pressure from the family anymore. So, what did you want to say to me earlier? Then Mr. Lee closed his eyes and said, it's time for me to go back to my era. The girl heard that and froze like a statue, shocked by Mr. Lee's words. Mr. Lee continued, I have been here for 10 years and I have almost reached my limit. I can't stay here anymore. You know that as I told you before. From now on, you will face this chaotic world alone. Then Kong Manhwa also said that in the past 10 years, I have thought, always thought, as long as I don't mention it, it won't happen, you won't have to go. It seems like I was wrong, what has to come will always come. Kong Manhwa, please listen to me. I signed a time contract with you to extend your life to 100 years. Mr. Lee hadn't finished speaking yet, when the girl screamed, "No, no, don't go, I need you very much." Mr. Lee heard that and also closed his eyes silently for a while, then said, "I'm sorry, but time doesn't allow it. I interfered with you too much, even if I can control time, but I can't stay here forever. But I hope you can continue to try, be strong and brave to get through this time. Do you know, time has warned me that I can't interfere anymore, or it will go crazy with me. So now I have to go." Mr. Lee finished speaking, his body began to glow from head to toe. The girl didn't know what to do except scream Mr. Lee's name. And Mr. Lee was swallowed by the light as he spoke. Mr. Lee said to the girl, "Trust me, everything you do is worth it. Try to complete your mission." The girl watched Mr. Lee disappear into the light. The girl's tears flowed out, and the author didn't show how many liters of water she cried. At the longevity club, Taneo Su was holding a file on her chest, leaning against the wall of the house. She didn't know if it was because she missed Mr. Lee or something else that made her close her eyes and sigh afterwards. She discovered something, so she looked over there. There was a sound coming from inside 2 rooms on either side of the door where there were 2 large bookshelves. The girl must have thought it was a thief or something hiding and peeking at it, her face pale with fear, but it wasn't a thief at all, it was Doo-Doo Man. She was also sneaking out of that room, probably afraid of being discovered by someone. Then Taneo Su quickly jumped out and said loudly, "Sister Do, what are you doing? You only went in there for about a minute and now you're out already?" And Do muttered, "This little sister scared me so much. Where's the boss, huh?" "Then I don't know either." In the blink of an eye he disappeared. He must have sneaked out to play already. Being a boss is too good. Doo-Doo Man said, "You said he was playing?" Then Mr. Lee quickly appeared behind Taneo Su's back. Mr. Lee also heard him say, "At least no one dares to complain when they are in front of me." Taneo Su heard Mr. Lee's voice behind her and was startled with a lot of sweat pouring like rain. Then she used a smile and turned to look at Mr. Lee and said, "Oh no, not like that, what I mean is the boss is always busy. Today I was lucky and felt like driving." Then, Mr. Lee started to smoke and rev his engine. The supercar Lamborghini sped away very fast. Bang Hao must have inhaled a lot of smoke. He felt worried and said, "I need a break. I just bought that car 2 days ago, but I'm sure it's fine if the boss drives it himself, right?" Maybe Mr. Lee is from the historical world 10 years ago where he only rode bicycles. Now he is interested in the car of his subordinate, and he also changed the scene to the villa of the Kong family. He must be Van Dao from history, and now he is the heir of the Kong family. Currently, he is reading the newspaper on a chair. Then, the phone on his table rang from an incoming call. "Hello, who is calling?" "Hello, is this Kong Van Dao?" "This is Mr. Lee. Do you have any orders for me?" "Well, not really, nothing special. I just wanted to say hello to an old friend, whom I haven't seen for a century." "A century without seeing each other? But we just met this morning. And are you Mr. Lee?" "I'm a bit doubtful and confused by what you said." Maybe Mr. Lee thinks that he has changed history clearly, but this guy doesn't have any impression. Then, Kong Van Dao felt like he was electrocuted. He felt like he had a lot of strange memories, like familiar ones, rushing into his head. It was like he had never heard a song before, but when he thought of it he knew it by heart. He sweated coldly and said, I remember now. I remember some things, clearly this is not impossible. Why is it like this?" "Yes, sir." I'm listening. I want to ask you if when I was young, I saw you in the garden of my ancestor's house, right?" "Yes, that's right. Long time no see, my old friend." Then he thought about the memories, the images that suddenly appeared. He whispered that it was impossible. The memories kept coming back. All the scenes and images at that time, all appeared before his eyes very clearly, very realistically, very detailed. These memories were like new ones. Clearly I had never seen them before. He thought for a while and then continued the call with Mr. Lee. Sir, I don't understand. Clearly, I only knew you half a year ago. So why, Van Dawa? Believe me, in the Longevity Club, nothing is impossible, nothing can't be done. I'm almost at your place, let's meet and talk later. Mr. Lee finished speaking and hung up the phone and continued driving. Very good, it seems that time has passed and rearranged. Because of my return, time and history have been automatically corrected and overlapped. Mr. Lee was driving well when he felt a headache, dizziness, and his body swayed. It must be a side effect. His eyes were worried and he sweated coldly. He said, what's going on? Is time shaking and changing? Is there something unstable in the flow of time? The wheel of time, the law of time. Do you still want to fight me because I changed history? In front of him was the villa of old Kong Van Dao, and Mr. Lee had arrived there and sat on a chair drinking tea. Old Kong said to him, Mr. Lee, please forgive my poor hospitality. My mind is very chaotic and confused right now. I really think that my cousin died more than 10 years ago. Mr. Lee heard him say that and was silent too. Old Kong poured a cup of hot tea and offered it to Mr. Lee, but it seemed that Mr. Lee didn't take it, so he put it down, then rubbed his face and said, Impossible. She really died, right? It must be because of the influence of the memories. Mr. Lee changed history, making him confused. And Mr. Lee was still silent, watching him. And he also calmed down, changed his expression, and said, the older and older you get, the more likely you are to have messy thoughts. Forget before, forget after, right? Sir, don't worry about it. He muttered to himself, what happened to me? And Mr. Lee just sipped his tea, looked at him deadly, and whispered, is this a side effect after I changed the timeline? His memory was mixed up, but it must be temporary. However, for a normal person, it takes a long time for the river to repair itself. This process may encounter problems. Maybe it's not really that easy. Mr. Lee closed his eyes again, sighed, and whispered, at least the memory trend cannot be completely reversed in a short time. Then Mr. Lee said to him, so do you still remember it? About your cousin from the Kong family and the current situation? He heard Mr. Lee ask that and was a little surprised and said, let me think. My sister seems to be abroad, right? Mr. Lee blushed, no, not at all. She never went abroad. What's wrong with men? He tried to recall his memories, but there were old and new ones, so they were mixed up and made him confused. Mr. Lee crossed his arms and legs and whispered, it seems that the memories that suddenly appear are not easy to digest and integrate like that. But I can't wait that long for him to adapt to the new memories. How long will it take? Then Mr. Lee looked at the time watch in his palm and whispered, then I'll try to increase the self-repairability in the flow of time and see if he can follow my will. Then Mr. Lee shouted his name, Kong Van Dao, tell me who I am, what do you mean? He was of course Mr. Lee, sir, the owner of the Longevity Club, right? But Mr. Lee also said no, he had forgotten. I am a businessman, your time and fate have been changed by me, everything is because of me that made you confused. Now all you can do is accept it. Then Mr. Lee's time watch spun very fast, there were many yellow flashes around it. And old Kong Van Dao was invaded by Mr. Lee's yellow light, he glowed like a halo. Then both of them appeared in a place in time. In front of them was a large golden ball shining. Mr. Lee took a breath and adjusted his glasses and whispered, let's start fixing this messy timeline. Let me see how stubborn you are. If it fails, then old Kong Van will become a useless person. Is it a good idea or not in this field? I am the one who has the final say. Scene change. Somewhere there was a voice saying, hurry up, this place will soon be crowded at noon. Oh my god, it's so unfair. This machine must be broken. You're so stupid, that's a new machine. But what about Xiao Min? I'm still a little scared. Or forget it, oh my friend, it's okay. Today, Miss Kong was busy, so she went home early. It will be fine. Let me tell you, there is also a very delicious fried rice restaurant there. They use 5 kinds of vegetables, fruits, and meat. We will go to the internet cafe after we finish eating. What do you think? The young man behind them was not surprised at all when he saw something very scary for students. He said absent-mindedly, "Oh no, we're dead." The kid, whose name is Xiao Min, was the one who led the way. Seeing his friend absent-minded, she turned her head and asked him, "What's wrong with you? Don't you like fried rice? How about the internet cafe?" The young man was trembling and sweating coldly as if he saw a ghost. He said, there is a dark shadow on the stairs looking at us. Let me reveal, this is Ms. Kong Man. I don't know how old she is this year. She had a serious face, a bit angry, and said to the 2 young men, "Well done. So this is the dark internet cafe that you kids often go to? You are very clever, Xiao Min, very professional. You can hide so well and sneak out like that." Then, Miss Kong Man said loudly that she would reward them. Write each word in the vocabulary list 5 times for her. No, Miss Kong Man said, "You are wrong. And you, Xiao Wang, as a member of the study committee, why did you skip school?" "Because I'm afraid you will skip school again. I will not punish you but reward you by writing 10 times. And tomorrow I will call your parents to see me. I won't dare anymore. I won't dare anymore. Please spare me, teacher. My mother will spank me. Was it you 2 who threw my shoes last time? Let's see how I will deal with you 2 when I get back," she said as she pulled their ears and dragged them away. Then there was a voice from behind, "Hiko Kong." She also heard it and turned her deaf eyes to look. That cold gaze gradually became soft and weak, tears flowed uncontrollably. Could it be that she saw someone important whom she hadn't seen for a long time? Yes, the figure of Mr. Lee slowly appeared. Mr. Lee asked if she could take a picture for him. The reason Mr. Lee said that was because she was a photographer and also liked to take pictures of handsome men. Mr. Lee said that he hadn't seen Manhwa for a long time. She once again got dust in her eyes and tearfully said, then Mr. Lee walked away and said, "I learned about your news from the head of the Kong family clan, so I hurried over to find you." Manhwa was stunned at this moment and didn't know what to say or do when facing Mr. Lee. Now Mr. Lee saw that she just looked at him without saying anything, so he asked her what was wrong. "Could it be that you have forgotten me? You are really too much." Then she also managed to say a few words, "Mr. Lee, why are you here?" "Your face." Then Mr. Lee said, "It's me. How have you been lately? Are you living well?" Miss Kong Man still couldn't believe it. Then, she quickly turned around and ran a few steps, hugged herself, sweated coldly and said, "Don't look at me. I can't face you with my current appearance. Your face hasn't changed at all since the last time we met, when we went to eat at Mr. Lee's and got drunk. It's like I'm a billionaire who loves someone who is insecure about themselves because they are poor." Then, while Miss Kong Man was chatting with Mr. Lee, the 2 kids also saw their chance. They quickly ran and shouted, "There's an opportunity. If we don't run now, when will we ever?" Miss Kong Man also noticed the 2 kids running away, while Mr. Lee smiled, because Mr. Lee would help her manage her students. In the moment when the 2 kids ran with all their strength, head down, the surroundings were distorted and time slowed down. That was Mr. Lee using his time manipulation. Then, Mr. Lee said, "Your students are very quick to react, aren't they? They know how to seize opportunities, right?" Miss Kong Man saw the 2 kids as if they were frozen, standing still in place. She was also confused and whispered, "That's not a childish idea, is it? Can I run away?" Mr. Lee saw that she kept looking in another direction and nodded at him. So he said, Hey, little sister, what are you looking at? Why do you always turn your head away from me? Come here and talk to me. The girl was startled and scared. She felt goosebumps when a young man with fair skin called her little sister. Then, she gathered all her courage and glanced at him. She gave him a cold look and said, Hey boy, don't call me like I'm your age. That sounds very weird. If other people hear it, they will misunderstand. That's really true. I haven't even thought enough about this issue yet. Then, Mr. Lee said again, but it's okay. I understand. I will help you. She heard that and also turned her face to look at Mr. Lee. Then, in that alley, there was a strong beam of light shining out. The girl was lifted up and floated in the air while Mr. Lee was hacking her lifespan. Mr. Lee whispered to himself, since I left that era, she has been running this school by herself under the great pressure of society. She took care of the students by herself and organized film festivals in the years of war. She faced the difficulties alone. She also refused the help of her uncle. She took hundreds of students to the countryside to escape from Hong Kong Island to abroad. She tried everything but the pain came back. She hid her identity and became a teacher. You have suffered enough for 100 years. Don't ever disappoint. After Mr. Lee hacked the time for Ms. Kong Man, he sighed and said to the girl, Welcome back again, Ms. Kong Man. The girl said, Now let me see, will you still tell me not to address you like that anymore? The girl was stunned for a moment, then she looked at her skin that had returned, which made her blush and said, Is this what you said? Restore youth, Ms. Kong Man. Now follow me, come and join my longevity club. The girl was very surprised and excited. Longevity club? Really? It seems that you mentioned it to me before, right? Can I join? Then, she suddenly stopped talking. She suddenly realized something very important. Her face was no longer smiling, so he was very surprised and didn't know what was wrong with her. Then she said, I'm sorry, I really can't go now. I can't go with you now. Mr. Lee heard the words uttered from the girl's mouth, which made Mr. Lee a bit excited and said, What? Don't you always want to go see it? Why suddenly you also know this school? I am the only Chinese teacher here. You also have more memories here. I can't leave these kids and go with you. And also, they will think I dropped out of school with a man abroad. That's not good. Please, turn me back to my original shape. Otherwise, the kids will be scared. Mr. Lee heard that and couldn't say anything. With Ms. Kong Man's request, he returned her original lifespan to her. The purpose is to continue to be a teacher for the students here. Ms. Kong Man has excellent academic performance in teaching Chinese. She could almost become a professor at a more modern university institution. I didn't expect that she would be willing to teach elementary Chinese here. I forgot that it was really her style. Mr. Lee seemed unhappy, thinking that he would be able to take her home to the club, but Ms. Kong Man was writing something and then said to Mr. Lee that, because I need to be here. You know, not every teacher is willing to come to places like this to teach in this remote small town. In fact, there are not many students here. Basically they are all children who are abandoned by their parents or orphans. Although they are not from a wealthy family, their lives are not very good either. But the most important thing is that children need opportunities to learn and study. Don't you think so? Finally the editing was done. Mr. Lee didn't say anything, just looked at her, but looking at Mr. Lee seemed like he had a sense of loss. It might also be because of her situation when she was young, because she was a girl so her family refused to let her go to school, so Mr. Lee also understood when she decided to teach here. Ms. Kong Man really became a teacher already. Then Ms. Kong Man continued saying that I always want to help children who need education, and that's what I've been doing and doing. That's why I said I want to continue doing that here, Mr. Lee. You can understand me, right? Mr. Lee was silent for a moment, his eyes deadly looking at her. Then, He said that when he met her, she said she wanted to choose her own life freely, and now she had done it. That was wonderful. Hearing Mr. Lee say that, she smiled brightly. As for Mr. Lee, he went into his thoughts and whispered to himself, "But there are some things I haven't said. That is because you have been different from these people since you met me for the first time. 100 years have passed, and sooner or later there will be a day when you will join a group in the longevity club. Just wait a little longer. It's still too early to bring the girl in." Then Mr. Lee also started to chat. Being a boss for children is not easy, right? Who? These are all trivial matters. This is really trivial. There is a third grader who feels too much. A few minutes later, there was a loud knock on the door outside. Then, the person opened the door and said, "Hello, two teachers. I came here to look for my child. Have you seen my little daughter anywhere?" Introducing a little bit, this is the immortal inspector who can be seen in Chapter 49, edited by Mr. Lee's history, targeting the main character who is the character being edited. Those who have close contact with the main character will be supporting characters, and from there they will also change some plot. Previously this name was an alcoholic and had sold a year of life to Mr. Lee, then opened a bakery. Now he has become a father and does not know Mr. Lee. Continuing with the story, then the teacher calm man saw that. She also said, "Isn't this Nana's father?" As for Mr. Lee, he was also a little surprised. Mr. Lee looked at him with a familiar look, so he whispered to himself, "This person looks familiar, Where have I met him before? Wait a minute, isn't this the damn author playing with me? I met him in Chapter 49, Sanji Okami the Immortal Inspector." Then, the Immortal Inspector said, "I saw the other kids had gone out to play already. My daughter, is she still studying in any class? Can you help me find her?" As for Mr. Lee, he still crossed his arms and whispered to himself, "By the way, the previous file said it had been activated already, there was no problem with changing it at all, but it seems he doesn't remember me anymore." Speaking of which, this inspector is probably the most assured customer among all my customers, the one who doesn't have to worry the most among all my customers. Then there was a child's voice saying "Papa." He also looked down at his feet and said to his daughter Nana, "Oh my God! My child! Where did you go?" The girl also answered that she went to school. Then he quickly sat down and talked to his daughter, "My dear, you are still young. You don't have to study too much and put pressure on yourself. Your job now is to eat. That way you will be healthy and keep your health good." As for Mr. Lee looking at their father and daughter then whispered to himself, "Oh, this must be the child he adopted, right? Or is it his biological child?" Then Mr. Lee used the power of time to see information about that girl, but Mr. Lee's expression was very surprising. Name, Nana. Age, 5 years old. Remaining lifespan, 6 months, 1 day, 304. So, seeing such information, he also whispered to himself, "This child is only 5 years old, but can only live for 6 more months?" The nameless immortal saw Mr. Lee's face and reaction and became curious about him. But he quickly changed his expression, smiled, turned around, waved his hand and said, "Sorry, teacher, let's go ahead." Ms. Kong must have noticed something from Mr. Lee's reaction, so she quickly got up from her seat and asked, "Mr. Lee, what's wrong with you? Do you feel something is wrong?" Mr. Lee also said, this child won't live long." The nameless immortal was stunned and then quickly changed his color, angrily said, "What are you talking about? What the hell are you saying?" Unfortunately, the video ended there. Thank you for watching. I wish you all good health, happiness and luck. If you can, please give me a gift with a like. Thank you very much.